Hey, I'm Leonard Saltz. I'm a doctor at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York, and I specialize in the treatment of colorectal cancer and development of new treatments for that disease. Okay, well, I think that one of the issues that has kind of snuck up on us, the oncology community, over the past several years has been the rising costs. And this is a development that has come out of many different factors. One is that the cost of seemingly each new drug is at least as high as the one that came before it, perhaps even higher. Two is that none of the drugs do what they set out to do, which is replace that which came before them. So instead what they do is they get added into the mix, whether it's introduced as yet another component of a multi-drug cocktail or added on before or after currently available drugs. The bottom line is they're incremental value added, but also incremental cost added, and the amount of the cost increase may not match the amount of actual benefit that the patient gets. So, for example, we have drugs being approved in this country that may give just a few weeks or even in the better cases a few months of potential survival benefit. And in fact, they're being priced as if they were home runs, as if they did in fact replace everything that came before them. But that's not really what they're accomplishing. They're just showing that they're worth something as well. A lot of people didn't notice the price increases because it's all third-party payment. And so the individuals that were being charged weren't actually seeing the bill. The bill was going somewhere else, whether it's a government program such as Medicare or Medicaid or private insurance. This is how the vast majority of people in the United States were having their care covered. Then what happened is the cost got to the point where copays became a critical factor, whether it was a fixed percentage or a fixed amount per intervention. And because the numbers were so large, the percentages that seemed nominal a decade ago started to matter to the individual. And so it's now that it's hitting home at the individual level that we're starting to see concern about it. But there really needs to be concern even before that, because as a society, we're all bearing these costs. And when you look at the cost of health care in general, and when we look at what that's doing to our economy, when we look at what that's doing to other industries, it's clear that we need some ways of controlling it. I presented some numbers at the ASCO meeting in 2003 that are, I think, instructive because they'll give you sort of a ballpark. If I chose to treat a patient today with the technology that was available in 1995, given that today those would be generic drugs and generic prices, a person's lifetime drug expenditure would be about $500, and the median survival would be expected to be about 11 months. Now, if I use all of the technologies available today, all of the drugs that are FDA approved for colorectal cancer, and we get the best sort of case scenario in terms of not needing dose modifications and so on, and we assume the median benefits that have been in the published studies. Now, instead of about an 11-month survival, we can be looking at 22 months to even longer, maybe out in excess of 2 years. Now, you can look at that two ways. You can look at it and say we've doubled survival in a decade. That's fair. Or you can say we've only improved survival by about a year in a decade. That's fair too. And I think to look at it fairly, you've really got to look at it both ways. Either way you look at it, that $500 price tag has now inflated to $250,000 per patient, a 500-fold increase. And that's just the drug cost. That's parts, not labor. So there's no doctor's fees, no pharmacist fees, no nursing fees, no administration fees, no payment for the real estate, heat and lights of wherever you're giving these drugs, no support for the additional medications that you might need in terms of anti-nausea medicines, perhaps growth factors, antibiotics if there's an infection, and of course treatment of any complications, either of the disease or the treatment that might come up. So that's a bare bones price, and that gives you an idea of the type of numbers that we're talking. Now, if you work that out over the number of patients we could expect to have in the United States, we start to get into the many billions of dollars per year just for the palliative treatment of metastatic colon cancer, one of many diseases we have to deal with. Obviously, this isn't something anybody's budgeted for, anybody has an idea how we're going to handle going forward. And of course, the prices have not flattened out, they've continued to climb.